Story 1. Sometimes the people you would do anything for will not even do the bare minimum for you. Story 2. Sometimes the bad guy wins, and sometimes you can be 100% in the right and it does not matter a bit. Story 3. Growing up means discovering that not everyone has the same heart as you. Story 4. Feelings and priorities change very quickly. One day you are someone's whole world, and the next you do not fit into their life. Story 5. Most people want you to do well but not better than they do. Story 6. I was a sunny, outgoing individual until something really shitty happened to my family. Suddenly, I didn't make eye contact with people and I was curt and barely civil. It dawned on me that all those people I had judged back when I was Pollyanna Sunshine for being bitter and grouchy made sense to me. Everyone is carrying something you can't see or know. This world scars everyone. Story 7. Finding out that your best friend, who is like a sister, and your husband, who is like a brother to her, cheated is devastating. Losing two people in the same day while they are still up and around, talking and breathing is not something I would wish on anyone. Decades of memories were forever trashed. Story 8. Real monsters do not live under the bed or in the closet. They walk among us. Story 9. Intentions do not matter. You are judged by your actions, not your intentions. Story 10. The worst people in existence are always in charge of everyone else. Story 11. The day you adopt a pet, you sign up for one of the most wonderful loves of your life and one of the most heartbreaking losses. I'll sign again. Story 12. One may smile and still be a villain. Many dishonest people will stab you in the back. Story 13. Pawn Stars is a fake show. A friend went to the store and stood in line. The show's producers went down the line asking people to bring items into the store for filming. All those surprise finds and negotiations are staged. The same is true of Storage Wars. In retrospect, this makes sense. You cannot find amazing items every day exactly when the camera crews are present. Still, it was disappointing. I used to enjoy that show. Story 14. Most people in power are psychopaths or sociopaths because corporate greed rewards that behavior. Story 15. You never really leave high school and are reminded of it constantly. You think adults are mature and know what they are doing, but they are not. Story 16. When I was younger, my mother told me that my 15-year-old dog was going to a dog retirement home and would not be coming back. The other day, my sister told me that there was no such thing and that he had to be put down. Now I am sad that my dog was really put down and very annoyed with myself for believing there were such things as dog retirement homes until I was 27 years old. Story 17. Everyone may be created equal, but not everyone is born equal. Story 18. Being a good person attracts the worst people. If you are selfless, giving, patient, generous, and so on, people will take advantage of and abuse your kindness. Story 19. Years ago, a man posted a YouTube video to raise awareness about human trafficking. The video included survivor stories, warning signs to watch for, and instructions on how to alert authorities. He also showed paintings created by a victim to illustrate how terrible human trafficking is. The victim's simple stick figure drawings conveyed, in a deeply horrifying way, what happened to her. Story 20. How some people defend voting against their own best interests. Story 21. Sometimes there are no good choices. Maybe that is due to a previous decision you made and you are facing the consequences. Maybe it is your body or your brain, something you cannot reach inside and change. You may not have put yourself in that position. It could be the result of decisions others made decades ago. You will find yourself looking at many evils, big or small, and trying to decide which you can stomach. Stories are often about the choice between good and evil. As you grow up, you may expect life to be like that, but it rarely is. It is not fair, and there is no way to make it fair. You just have to live with it. Story 22. Anyone who has excessive charm or charisma is someone you should be wary of. Not all such people are insincere. I know a few who genuinely love everyone like a golden retriever. Just because someone smiles and treats you as if you were special does not mean they are sincere. Story 23. There are lots of truths I wish weren't true, but none I wish I didn't know. Story 24. People will give you exactly as much shit as you are willing to take. This can include people who love you. Story 25. People tend to believe whatever is socially convenient for them, regardless of the facts. Story 26. Very large groups of people can be brainwashed so easily. Story 27. The majority of relationships in your life are based on the other person believing you can provide something they want. When you can no longer provide that, they will have no qualms about abandoning you or moving on. Very few people will genuinely like you for who you are. Story 28. I am at a place in life where I need everything to be honest. There is no truth I wish I had never learned. There are people and deeds that I wish had never existed. Story 29. 20 years after the fact, my niece told me that my sons had found an object and were chasing each other and her around the house. Story 30. When most of us die, we will exist only as memories for a handful of people and will eventually be forgotten. Perhaps we will survive as an entry on a person's family tree but remain otherwise unknown. Story 31. When my dad told me I wouldn't have so many friends as an adult, I didn't think adulthood could be so lonely. Story 32. The farm your parents took your dog to does not really exist. Story 33. Chronic illness brings everything in your life to a screeching halt. Story 34. It is shocking how racist and hate-filled a large portion of our country is. I always knew there were a lot of not very bright people, but I did not realize there were so many who would rather kick a person in the head than help them up, for whatever reason. Race, nationality, religion, or beliefs. Story 35. One truth I wish I had never learned is that life does not always reward kindness. You can treat people with respect, care, and honesty, but often they do not reciprocate. Selfish people sometimes seem to get ahead. It is a hard reality, but it teaches you to do good for your own peace of mind, not because you expect anything in return. Story 36. There are bad people in this world who just like to cause suffering for others. We humans are a bad species. Story 37. How many things can kill you? Fuck my life. I lost a friend at 11 to a heart attack, and another who broke his neck at age 14 using a pull-up bar. They were good kids too. Also, how different some people can be in public and in private. Finding out that the coolest guy in the office who solved everyone's problems couldn't solve the one in his own mind and subsequently took his own life. That hit differently. Story 38. How selfish and self-centered almost everyone is. How law and justice do not work at all like you think they should. Story 39. Do not trust anyone. If you tell people private things about yourself, they will use them against you. Story 40. That I will never learn any truth. I can only approximate it. Story 41. A third of the people I see every day would cheer if people like me were sent to camps, and another third would just watch. Story 42. I regret nothing I have learned. Even the harsh and disappointing truths helped me understand the world. During my divorce, I learned many things, and I know I made the right choice by leaving her. Story 43. Life is short and almost always ends messily. If you live in the actual world, you cannot have your own way. If you get what you want, it turns out not to be what you wanted. No one thinks as well of you as you do yourself, and 1 or 2 generations from now you will be forgotten entirely and the world will go on as if you never existed. Paul Fussell, A Power of Facing Unpleasant Facts. In Thank God for the Atom Bomb and Other Essays, 1988. Story 44. Sometimes you have given everything, but it is still not enough. Story 45. Sometimes you can try your best, but the game was rigged from the start. Story 46. I think I am pretty easygoing, friendly, and generous. Almost always, I assume people will either like me or be neutral. It is always a shock when I learn that certain people in my life hate my guts. I have never wronged them in any way. Some people just hate you for existing, and you cannot do anything to change their minds. Story 47. Personality disorders are real and, if untreated, should be avoided at all costs. There are people far worse than you can imagine, and there are wolves among the flocks. Never ignore the red flags. Your boundaries are very important. If they are crossed, address it immediately. That alone is enough to protect yourself. Story 48. Even people you love dearly will sell you out in a heartbeat if they think their lives will be better. Story 49. Some people just get away with terrible things, and they are usually the ones who live a full life. Story 50. I used to work at a think tank in Washington, District of Columbia. One of our scholars wrote a book about child soldiers in the Liberian Civil War and other African conflicts. Many were drugged on cot and committed killings and rapes of adults and other children. I wish I had not read it. It was also distressing to learn that in many places in the world you can trade a pair of new sneakers for a Kalashnikov assault rifle model 1947 and a full curved magazine of ammunition. Story 51. Every memory we have is re-recorded when we think about it. The event from your childhood that you often recall is re-recorded each time you retrieve it. The more you think about it, the less accurate the memory becomes. Story 52. There is a limit to how much knowledge we can gather in our beautiful minds. Story 53. Good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. Story 54. I'm listening to The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein on Audible. Now I kind of wish I hadn't started the book. Ignorance is bliss. Story 55. I learned through Ancestry, the family tree company, that my late dad may not have been my biological father. Someone contacted me with this snippet without first considering that it might be shocking. I have not told anyone in the family, and I doubt I ever will. I still think of my dad as my dad and have no intention of researching the man who was present at my conception. This is a lesson for anyone looking for their ancestors. Be very careful when contacting strangers with the good news that they might be related. Story 56. Not every fart is harmless. Sometimes you get an unwelcome surprise while far from home and without a spare pair of underwear. That suspicious release can leave you feeling defeated. Story 57. The path to success through hard work, dedication, and loyalty is not guaranteed. Nepotism and cronyism can keep qualified, well-liked, and deserving individuals from opportunities. Sometimes it becomes so pervasive that you either tolerate it because you depend on your job for health insurance or risk more by leaving for a fairer employer. Story 58. Reading Capital in the 21st Century and Realizing There Is No American Dream. Story 59. There really are no checks and balances in government. Story 60. One day you will lose all your loved ones. Story 61. I could not wait to grow up so I could live in a world where people knew the difference between right and wrong and stopped doing wrong things. Story 62. Everyone has a price. Too many people are simply bad. Some are just evil. Some things never heal. Story 63. Lobsters scream when boiled, but it is just air escaping. Story 64. It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. It's life. Jean-Luc Picard. I was just a little kid seeing The Next Generation on its original playthrough, but that hit me hard. Story 65. My now ex-husband went on a date with his new girlfriend the day I moved out of our home, and they had been talking for 3 weeks before I moved out. Allegedly, it was all on Hinge, although she goes to the same gym he never misses every single morning. And she goes at the same time. I wish I had never learned any of this. He continued to tell me everything about her even when I asked him not to because I thought we were friends. Not friends like that. I am your ex-wife. Classic narcissist, as I later found out. Story 66. Growing up doesn't mean freedom. It means carrying the weight no one warned you about. Story 67. You often mean little or nothing to the people you care about most. Story 68. People will not treat you nicer just because you treated them nicer. Story 69. A guy friend, while drunk, admitted to being sexually aroused by my Instagram pictures. I am well aware that some men do this, but it was still a shock to hear it directly from someone I knew and considered a friend, with whom I had nothing beyond a platonic relationship. I never spoke to him again. Story 70. This shows how racist a large percentage of the American population is. I would have preferred that it remain hidden and not become public. Story 71. The passage from the mouth to the anus is a tube open to the outside that runs through the body's interior. Story 72. It is not that I wish I had not learned it. I just wish everyone would admit that there is no proof that God, as described by any major religion, is real. Story 73. Municipal recycling programs are largely a sham. At most 5% is recycled if you are lucky. Story 74. Prion diseases. Ignorance really is bliss. I was much happier when I had no idea what prion are. Story 75. First impressions are not final because people are often not genuine. Story 76. When I was a little girl in early grade school, some of the other girls begged me to accompany them into the bathroom when they needed to use it. At 6 and 7 this seemed ridiculous. They would plead with me to stand beside them and look into my eyes with an earnest, frightened expression, so I reluctantly complied. They never explained. Back then I thought it was silly and stupid. You can go to the bathroom yourself. Why wouldn't you want privacy? With an adult's perspective, it is obvious why those girls did not want to be alone in a bathroom, and the reason is infuriating. I wish I had been kinder then. I wish I had known about Child Protective Services and how to file a report. Story 77. Nothing lasts forever. Deep friendships, family relationships, the business you love, anything. Story 78. Bro, why are these all so deep? I was just going to say male giraffes drink female giraffes' urine. Story 79. After death, you will have no heart, no breath, and no brain. Story 80. Some people will pretend to love you while talking badly about you and sabotaging your reputation to anyone they can, causing the opportunities you create around them to fail because they would rather seek momentary fun than build a good life. Story 81. We are tiny creatures on a rock flying through space so large it's incomprehensible, and nothing we do really matters in the grand scheme of things. Story 82. Our sun will turn into a red giant and burn up the earth. Story 83. One day we will all die. The house, the sun, and the earth will die. Story 84. Friends, even the closest ones, may betray you for what they consider the right reason. Story 85. As you get older, people stop wanting to host wild house parties and instead prefer exhausting, boring dinner parties. I miss parties. Story 86. Beautiful people have it easier. Ugly people have it harder. Story 87. Just because you can't see yourself ever doing something or treating someone a certain way doesn't mean other people will act the same. It is often said that when someone tells or shows you who they are, believe them. Story 88. I learned the truth at 17. That love was meant for beauty queens. Story 89. When people really want to get to know you, it's often because they want something from you. To expose you, control you, or get inside your mind to destroy you. The worst part is when you try to get to know someone honestly, wanting to understand them and become friends, and they assume you're like everyone else and trying to trick them. Story 90. None. If it is true, it must be learned. I wish I had never learned certain lies. Story 91. Few people feel genuine empathy for others. Compassion is increasingly rare. People no longer step forward in emergencies as they did years ago. Instead, many take out their phones to film. This is troubling, and it breaks my heart to see. Story 92. The way a lot of television portrays political agendas is not just satire. Story 93. Fairy tale endings are nonsense. Trigger warning, bleak. When you are young, you imagine finding your perfect partner, spending many years of bliss, growing old together, and then one day both of you simply disappear at the same time. In reality, even if you are one of the luckiest people and find a wonderful partner and you both live long lives, someone will go first. One partner may develop dementia and you will watch their decline. One may get cancer and you will spend hours in the hospital. Maybe the luckiest scenario is that you live a long, mostly healthy life full of adventure, and then one day someone dies in their sleep or after a brief and gentle illness, surrounded by loved ones. It is bleak, but many people spend a long time alone or watch a loved one fade from dementia. I saw my father go through it, and it can leave you feeling alone that this happened to him. But this is part of the human condition. Death is inevitable. Story 94. The truth about pedophiles and how active they are in the world. Leaders, teachers, and other adults around children sometimes share, produce, and collect abusive material for utterly disgusting reasons. I cannot fathom how evil they are. Because I can only protect my own family, I wish I did not know the details of their atrocities. Story 95. The early warning signs that a relationship you are in may be abusive. Story 96. The world keeps going when someone very close to you dies. Story 97. When I turned 18, school did not really make me smarter, and I was totally unprepared for adult life. Story 98. Growing up in the 1980s and 1990s, there was a common trope in kids' media that nothing was more important than family. Parents would always love you more than anything and would literally die to protect you. Ohana means family. All fathers care for their sons. Together, as a family, we can do anything. If anything bad ever happened to you, you could and should always tell your parents and they would help you. You could always trust your mother or your father. They would be there for you, support you, and want you to follow your dreams and be happy. Every movie parent who lost a wayward child was relieved to have that child back and give them a big hug. Every television parent was deeply concerned about their children's problems and never, ever caused them. Turns out that is not true for many people. It was not only hard growing up with a warped sense of what love and support are. I still struggle to understand that it is not normal for people in loving relationships to ignore each other all the time unless they are angry, but also painful to feel lied to for decades by a media machine that was well-intentioned yet naive. I have talked with others who grew up in difficult homes, and it is hard to realize how messed up it really was and that you assumed it was typical. Story 99. There are people in the world who will take advantage of you if you give them the opportunity. They have no empathy or guilt and do not care how their actions affect others. They operate from a dog-eat-dog, win-at-all-costs mentality. There are psychopaths for whom money and power are everything. They will stop at nothing and destroy anything between them and their objectives. There are ideologies whose adherents would not hesitate to kill you and who actively wish you dead. No amount of love or acceptance will change them. They will accept your generosity and gut you with a smile. Darkness in the world can come for you without provocation or warning. So it is up to you to protect yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically. To comprehend and cope with the darkness in others, you must acquaint yourself with the darkness within yourself. It is horrifying what some people are capable of and how blissfully oblivious many are to it. Story 100. That our Constitution and Bill of Rights are basically worthless. Story 101. Some people only love you when it's convenient for them. Story 102. Humanity will choose comfort over the continuation of the species. Story 103. Most people do not actually grow out of being mean. They just learn to hide it better. Story 104. Hard work and being a good person do not guarantee a good life. Sometimes the bad guys win. Story 105. Most people cannot reciprocate your actions. Do not expect similar treatment. Story 106. A country's direction will always be controlled by the least common denominator. Story 107. Life is unfair. No one cares. You are on your own. The world owes you nothing. Rely only on yourself. Story 108. I value all truth as it adds to wisdom and knowledge. Wait, I got one. Ignorance is bliss. I wish I were ignorant. Story 109. Hard work does not pay off. Being good does not guarantee a reward. Evil people win in the long run because they exploit good people and do not feel any guilt about it. Story 110. My grandparents weren't perfect. After they died, I couldn't speak to them about the stories I had heard. Story 111. Trusting people until they give me a reason not to is a mistake that I have never learned from. Story 112. You care for people who do not care about you, and people you do not care about care for you. Story 113. Just because you treat people well and give them a lot of your heart does not mean they will reciprocate. The sooner you accept this, the less it will hurt. Story 114. Catching a virus can permanently ruin your life, causing long coronavirus disease 2019 and myalgic encephalomyelitis, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. Story 115. If you do good to people, they might not do good in return. It does not mean you have to stop, but it makes it harder. As hard as you try to guess, you never know what is in someone else's head, their values, motives, and background. This is fine because we are all unique. Story 116. In an apocalyptic situation, we would stab each other over a can of peaches. Story 117. There really are no grown-ups in charge, and it is pretty much by blind chance that civilization has not collapsed already. Story 118. There are many truly cruel people in the world who will harm others simply because they disagree with their views. Story 119. After growing from a child into an adult, I now have to become a child again because adulting is hard. Story 120. Happiness doesn't come from things. By the time you realize it, you've already wasted years chasing them. Story 121. We digest only the kernel of corn. The outer shell passes through undigested, so when you see corn in your stool, you are seeing corn hulls filled with stool, not whole kernels. Story 122. Just because they seem like a good person does not mean they are. Story 123. Being a good person and doing the right thing often causes more harm and strife than acting dishonestly. In my experience, such people always seem to get ahead. Story 124. To companies, you are just a number. Human beings are ephemeral. We can all be the villain in a poorly told story. What you have today, you can lose tomorrow. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty does. No matter how bad the world is, do not let your inner child die. And the list goes on. Story 125. It's possible to make 0 mistakes and perform flawlessly and still lose. Story 126. People are not all good or all bad. You never know how horrible a person can be until they finally let you. I do not idolize anyone. I have learned not to look up to people. If I want an example to follow, I have to create it myself by living it. Story 127. There is punishment for being a good person in this society, while being a bad person is rewarded. Story 128. That ignorance is not just bliss. It is sweet bliss and very painful when it is gone. Story 129. In fiction, good triumphs over evil. In real life, evil almost never receives its proper punishment. Story 130. Given a sliver of power over you, most people will not hesitate to use it if it is to their advantage. This includes those who claim to love you. Story 131. Some people are simply evil. They are not misguided or misunderstood. They are deliberately embracing evil. Story 132. If you are not happy in your own company, you probably will not be happy in the company of others. Story 133. Creedence Clearwater Revival is from Southern California. All of that swamp talk and the accent were apparently faked. It broke my heart when I found out. Story 134. An unsurprisingly large number of people in the United States vote for terrible candidates. Do not vote at all, vote for Mickey Mouse because someone left their shoelace untied, or support candidates who would make things worse in another country because the opposing candidate did not say what they wanted. Story 135. Everything is essentially made of money. Every tree, every street sign, every blade of grass was created with money. It's all just money. No money, no life. Story 136. In this world, everyone cares only about money, even if it means selling their dignity. Story 137. Sorry, I can't assist with content that attacks people based on nationality. Many people who claim to support democracy may privately hold authoritarian views. A significant number of individuals who profess belief in democracy may, in fact, favor authoritarian policies. Story 138. This thread is weird. Apparently, everyone wishes they had not learned things that are incredibly important, mostly basic stuff related to growing up in society. Story 139. There is not one. There is nothing so painful to learn that I would choose ignorance. Story 140. You can spend your entire life miserable and alone, no matter how much effort you put in. Story 141. The concept of truth has been hotly debated since antiquity, and there is still no agreed-upon definition that applies to everyone all the time. This messed with me. Seems so intuitive, but when you delve into it, it is complicated. Story 142. The law really is an ass. You are on your own in this world. Story 143. Your friends only speak to you if you give them money. Once you say no, they will become strangers. Story 144. When my stepmom was drunk many years ago, she told me that my stepbrother is the reason she divorced her children's biological father. When my stepbrother was only 5 years old, he told my stepmom about daddy's new friend, who kept visiting and playing in the other room. Stepmom still has not told my stepbrother for fear of how that might affect him, and I still question why she felt her then 19-year-old stepson would be a better person to unburden herself to. Story 145. If it is mandatory, it is not necessarily for your own good. Story 146. I first learned that Santa was not real. In 8th grade, I learned that United States dollar bills are debts owed to banks. I am not a fan of the monetary system or of how a few powerful people decide how to shape the world based on money. Story 147. Life can change in a moment. I am sick of learning this lesson. 1. My father died unexpectedly when I was 25. 2. My first wife suddenly filed for divorce. I did not know she was cheating on me. She became pregnant by the person she had an affair with. 3. I married the most perfect woman in the world about a year later. We were about to enjoy a weekend together when, on her way home from work, she was in a car accident and sustained life-changing injuries. She will heal with time, but it reinforced how, at a moment's notice, your life trajectory can change. I am just thankful she is alive. If you saw photos of her vehicle, you would wonder how she survived. Story 148. Half of my country wishes the other half dead for no reason other than a difference of opinion. Yet they claim to love Jesus more than anything while engaging in this rabid hatred. When someone figures out that second part, please enlighten me. Story 149. Things I have learned about my family that I wish I had never known. Story 150. Parents do not really know what they are doing. We are people who had to figure it all out, and so did our parents. Story 151. A person I once trusted, who had helped me come out of my shell when I was younger, sexually assaulted several women. Story 152. Even though the question asks for detailed personal stories, I knew it would go global, so I must say this. We are about to fail this attempt. Hurry and create a code for any survivors describing what we know brings good people together repeatedly, until continents connect and global communication can record the triumph of love over money. Strength and muscle are valuable but should not be used to exploit others. Being thin or weak is not bad. Intelligence can be exploited. Just kidding. Story 153. Every relationship ends in heartbreak. My parents were together for 50 years, having met as teenagers. They believed they would be together forever. They had a rock-solid, loving relationship and barely spent a day apart during those years. My father died very suddenly, and my mother was devastated. Time and death are devastating opponents, and they will win every time. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.